Alright, so welcome back for the last little piece. The title, Floats Gone Wild, not nearly that exciting, but I wanted to tell you about some of the things that go wrong with floats. You've already kind of seen one of them, so this problem of like floats that are not in the parent. So if you look at this image, you can see that the two boxes in this case have gone outside of the parent. And the way we fix that is we chose to do it by setting overflow hidden on the parent item. And so if you set overflow hidden, it actually does some nice things, right? So what it does is it doesn't draw anything outside the parent, and it's actually smart enough to increase the parent, so as though that doesn't happen, right? To be honest, as far as like float goes, float's very old. This overflow hidden is a little bit newer. And you actually saw that on your exercise as well, if you tried to make this thing into a narrow screen. I'm going to go ahead and open this up just so we can kind of take a look at it real quick. So you can go and open up yours as well. So here's my exercise 2. Right now I don't have any overflow on the parent set. So you can see that as I get start to get narrower and narrower, pretty quickly I run into a problem, right? And so what happens here is the floats, you can see, leave their parent element. And actually there's floats that are sticking out the bottom of this guy as well, if I were to scroll to the bottom. And so there's no great fix, but if you do add overflow hidden to the row, so I'll just go ahead and add that back on this. And so now as soon as I hit refresh, it gets a little better, and then it at least contains it to within its parent element, so it doesn't go too crazy. So that shows one problem you can have. There's actually a couple other problems. What we're going to do is we're going to look at one of the examples that's in the starting code. So just go ahead and go into the starting code. Code used in this lecture, find the float properties, and open the one for just float left. This is a pretty basic example. And you can just say open with system editor. And let's just go ahead and take a look at this one. So this has two boxes, which are both float left. No big deal. But I'll say that if you start to move this, you may have noticed, like at some widths, it kind of does something crazy. What's that all about? So it kind of does like a high line and a low line. It turns out that I know what's happening here, and I could go into it in details. It's because the whole thing doesn't fit. So like some of this lorem ipsum fits on a line, and the whole thing doesn't fit. And so you've got this weird issue of two things stacked together. So you can see that that's also mentioned in the slides for the left, and then the same problem happens on the right. So this is just kind of an eccentricity of floats. It's following all the rules. It's just that box number 1 fit on that line, but box number 2 had to go to the next line. So it kind of showed it staggered like that. There's some even crazier things that can happen though. Go ahead and open up this float left in code so that you can edit it in code as well. So if I go into this HTML editor, you can see that right now they've both got a float left, but do this for me. Put float left on just the first one, and then the second one, we'll just explicitly state that it's none, and then go refresh it. And I think something even crazier is going to happen here. So if I refresh this, you can see that box 2 is like overlapping box 1. And depending on the width of the screen, sometimes there's a yellow little sliver at the top, and sometimes there's not. This is kind of what I'm talking about like this float's just kind of crazy, right? And so what's happening here is it's putting this float in, and then it's putting something that's not a float below it, but this one below it is stretching up in kind of a weird way. The way you fix things like this, I'm not going to go into it in great detail, is what are called clear fixes. I've only shown you one method for a clear fix, and so I've shown you specifically the overflow hidden, which is in this article their method 2, right? So the overflow hidden on the parent. You can also use overflow auto, they work just the same. And what that does is that kind of keeps it within the parent. But there is a lot more information if you plan on using floats a lot about ways to fix some of the issues, and they're called clear fixes. And here's a link for some things if you want to learn more. You could also just try to avoid floats at times. So there's a property we'll talk about later called flex, which will show you some completely different ways to do things. But I at least wanted to make you aware of the bigger community and different clear fix solutions that are out there. The other thing that I wanted to do is we're kind of at the end of this unit. I wanted you to take a minute and go through the CSS walkthrough round 2, so the Google walkthroughs. So just do just like you did at the start of this unit. Open up 2 copies of it. So one in Chrome so that you can play with it, and then also open up one here so that you can edit it. And if you've got the screen real estate, definitely scoot them to where you can see them together at the same time. You'll be a lot happier if you did. And then once you've got them situated, you can go through some of the exercises just like you did before. So just go ahead and take them one line at a time. So the width of 150, hopefully there's nothing too surprising there. But whenever you add this to inline, you should do a much better job of guessing what's going to happen. So as soon as I add inline to all these guys, the height value of 150, it's going to go away. Instead of taking up a certain width, the width property is going to go away, so it's going to just snap to the box. It's going to share it with everybody else. So as soon as I do display inline, this thing's going to become 1, 2, 3, all in a row, all really small at the top of the screen. So I save it, and then I click refresh, and then bam, 1, 2, 3, right? Whereas if you put it back to block, it should do other things. So go through this exercise again, just to kind of make sure you understand all the details. And then there's some things at the bottom about float, and then you can see it kind of finishes with the clear fix that we taught you, which is overflow hidden. All right, so that's kind of it for this unit. The main takeaway message was how these float, display, and position properties interact, and what they do, of course. And then hopefully this chart is one that can kind of tell you some of that information. And so at this point, really, you should know a lot more about the fundamentals of CSS layout, what beats what, the box model. You've done 2 exercises, you've done a lab. You should start to feel a lot more comfortable with some of these CSS layouts. That's it for this unit. We'll see you next time. Bye.